Hey, what's up guys? Dan the Movie Man here bringing you another video. And today I'm going to be counting down my top 10 favorite horror movies of all time. So let's get right into it. Number 10, The Shining. Now a lot of people would have The Shining up there as their number 1, or at least in like the top 3. But I have mine pretty low. Don't get me wrong, the movie's great. It's directed by Stanley Kubrick, one of the greatest directors of all time, starring Jack Nicholson, a great actor, and Shelley Duvall, who really holds her own in this movie. But as good as it is, when it's good, it's really good. But 90% of the movie is build up. And I understand they had to build up what was happening. They had to make the movie this long, but it takes a while to get there. And that's the only reason it's so low. But The Shining is, I think, one of the best, not just Stephen King stories, but horror stories in general. And it definitely deserved a spot on the top 10. Number 9, I have the original Evil Dead. Evil Dead was an interesting movie because it was shot for very little. It's very much a B indie horror movie, and you can tell, but it revolutionized so much in the horror genre. It was a creative idea with a creative director who would go on to do so many great things, and the makeup, the monster makeup in this movie is so good. There are some moments that are really corny and cheesy now, but back then it was like, whoa. And it's just all around fun movie to watch. This was before Evil Dead went in the funny kind of horror comedy route. So this was a straight up horror movie. And, there's some very explicit scenes. A lot of people point out the tree scene is very, it's out there. And, but this movie builds a mythology for the entire series with the Necronomicon, Ex Mortis, the Book of the Dead, obviously, and Bruce Campbell's character Ash fighting Deadites and what that means for the series as a whole. So it's a very good horror movie, and it's definitely in my top 10. Number 8, I have Scream. Scream is a movie that reimagined and rejuvenated the slasher franchise, directed by Wes Craven of A Nightmare on Elm Street fame. It was a horror movie, it was a comedy, it was a parody, a satire. It was so much in one movie, and it was so funny and eerie and entertaining. You try to predict who the killer is, and then it turns out there's two killers. And one of the killers was disproven twice in the movie. Twice. And it's just such a smart movie, and it understands the horror genre. Its characters understand the horror genre, and that's what drives the film. And it's so refreshing to see a horror movie that satirizes the horror genre while still being a part of the horror genre. And a Scary Movie kind of parodies the horror genre, but it's not like this. It's not like this. Scream is absolutely fantastic. One of the most revolutionary slasher films ever made, in my opinion, and one of the best. So at number 7, I have Misery. Misery might be my favorite Stephen. No, it is my favorite Stephen King movie. This movie is crazy. And it's so the thing that's eerie and creepy about it isn't because it's some supernatural force. It is a very real thing that could happen to a person. Basically, an author gets kidnapped. Well, not kidnapped. He gets saved, really, by a fan, and he's very grateful. But this fan becomes obsessive and very insane and obsessed, and she does stuff that's very out there. She breaks his legs. She confines him in a wheelchair, forces him to write a new book because she didn't like the ending to the one he was about to release. And it's very, very creepy and very eerie, and it's awesome. It's very suspenseful, and it's just an all-around good movie. And I love Misery. It's my favorite Stephen King adaptation. Alright, so number 6 is a classic Universal monster movie. It is Frankenstein, the original Frankenstein. This movie is great, and for a lot of reasons. Number 1, the Frankenstein monster looks amazing, especially for the time. And, the acting in this movie is very good. The idea of this monster being created out of different human parts is so creepy and so like, and then there's just the town going against the monster, and the monster, he's not explicitly evil, and it's just he doesn't understand, and there's a part where he kills a girl, and it's not even because he's trying to kill the girl. He thinks he's playing, and it's such a unique movie. It's my favorite of the original Universal Monster movies, and I love the original Universal Monster movies. The Wolfman, Dracula, the Mummy, not Brendan Fraser's Mummy, the original Mummy. But it's just such a fun universe of movies, and especially Frankenstein. It's so good. Frankenstein's my favorite of the Universal Monsters, so he had to be represented on this list. Number 5 is the first and I believe only sequel on my list, and that's Evil Dead 2. Evil Dead 2, while some might call it a comedy, I consider it to be horror comedy. It's both horror and comedy. It takes place right after Evil Dead 1. Ash Williams is tired of this stuff, and he just lets loose. And Bruce Campbell plays it terrifically. Ash goes a little bit more crazy, a little bit more wild. He lobs off his hand with the chainsaw, and then attaches the chainsaw to where his hand used to be, and it gets crazy. It gets crazy. A lot of killing deadites, a lot of new characters. This redneck couple that comes in, and they're kind of out there and crazy, and it's everything you'd want from an Evil Dead sequel, but it's so funny. Ash has quips. He's saying his catchphrase has now become groovy. It's just awesome, and it really rejuvenated the Evil Dead movie, because without that it would have just been Evil Dead all over again. And then of course it had that great twist ending where Ash gets sent back in time, and now in the next Evil Dead he's gonna be back in time, and that's where we get Army of Darkness, which in its own right, Army of Darkness is a great movie. I don't consider Army of Darkness a horror movie at all, though, so that's why Army of Darkness isn't on this list. Alright, number 4 is the first original Nightmare on Elm Street. Nightmare on Elm Street is one of the most original and inventive slasher movies of all time. The idea of a killer that can get you in your sleep, in your dreams. It's very disturbing, very scary. It's a very scary idea. And Freddy Krueger is a villain that is very creepy. He's seared, burned flesh, the knives on his hand, and the glove. The weird, like, he's wearing a sweater and he's still scary, and he makes jokes. He makes jokes, and he does not care, and he's picking off this group of friends one by one in some of the most brutal and horrific ways. The first girl, the best friend, I can't remember her name for the life of me, but she has this brutal death where she's on the ceiling getting cut up, and her boyfriend watches this all happen, and he gets framed for a murder, and it's a crazy scene. And then of course Johnny Depp's character dies by getting sucked into the bed, and then you see a bunch of blood just gush out, and it's very violent and horrific and gory for an 80s slasher, and it was very different from the typical slasher like Friday the 13th or any of the Halloween sequels. It was very, very different, very inventive. It introduced us to Freddy Krueger, one of the best movie villains ever, and it's just an all-around great movie. Number 3, I have Halloween, the original Halloween. I'm gonna say invented the slasher genre, kind of. I won't say invented, but it popularized the slasher genre, and it had a faceless killer with no motive. He's just the embodiment of evil, something the sequels would lose, that kind of makes the sequels lackluster. But in the original, Michael Myers is the pure embodiment of evil. He has no motive. He doesn't kill because he's cursed, or because this or that, or because he was abused as a child or anything. He is just the pure embodiment of evil. There's a great line by his psychiatrist, whose name is Sam Loomis. Loomis, he basically says he looked into this 6-year-old boy's eyes, and what he saw was just pure evil. And it's a great line. And also, they bring up the theme of the boogeyman a lot in this movie. Like, the boogeyman, he's gonna get you. The boogeyman's coming after you. And, this babysitter, Lori, that gets attacked by Michael's like, the boogeyman's not gonna get you, don't worry. And then after she's attacked, she looks at Loomis, she goes, was that the boogeyman? And Loomis says, as a matter of fact, it was. And it's such a good, well-crafted movie. And the score, the music, some of the most iconic music ever in a horror movie. And the ending. The ending was great because Michael Myers gets shot a lot and falls off a balcony. And the movie ends, Sam Loomis looks off the balcony, and there's no body. Score kicks in, shows all the different locations Michael could be. You can feel Michael breathing, and the movie ends. And it's a great, great movie. The sequel's kind of tainted it. Halloween Resurrection, I'm looking at you. But it could have been worse. And, I'm excited for the upcoming Halloween, but nothing's ever going to beat the original. So Halloween at number 3. And number 2, I'm going to say the most influential horror movie of all time. The most important horror movie of all time. Psycho. A lot of people don't consider this a horror movie. They say it's suspense thriller, and while it is suspenseful and a thriller, it's also very much a horror movie. I think this movie created the slasher genre. Norman Bates is a great villain, and the fact that he's absolutely out of his mind. He doesn't think he's murdering anybody. He thinks it's his mother. He dresses up as his mother, kills people, and actually believes it was his mother. The shower scene is one of the most iconic scenes in cinema, let alone horror films. And, it's very creepy, very eerie. Everyone's trying to figure out who did it, and killing off the main actress halfway through the movie, that was unheard of in 1960. It took an insane risk, and it paid off because it is now known as not just Alfred Hitchcock's most notable movie, but probably the most notable horror movie in the history of cinema. And that's why Psycho is number 2 on my list. Now, what could be number 1? What could be better than the most influential horror movie of all time? My favorite horror movie focuses on the themes of paranoia, of not knowing who to trust. That horror movie is another John Carpenter movie. 1982's The Thing. The Thing is such a great horror movie because it's about an alien that can assimilate human beings and basically look like your best friend, your closest friend, people close to you, people you trust. And to make matters even worse, these people are isolated in Antarctica on a research facility at Outpost 31. These people are trapped with the Thing, and they don't know who the Thing is. Paranoia racks up. People don't know who to trust. People turn against each other. MacReady fucking shoots people. He does not care, and this movie is great at paranoia. The score, I think, the best score in film history. Not film, horror film history. It's so simple but so effective to that story, and I absolutely love this movie. The makeup, the effects, it's so beautiful, so beautifully crafted, and it's gory, violent. One thing I always point to is that chest scene. He goes to revive. I can't remember his name. Norris. He goes to revive Norris. Norris' stomach opens, bites the doc's hand off. He freaks out. It's crazy. It's absolutely nuts. This movie is so crazy, and it has the best ending in the history of any horror film. Ambiguous. You don't know what's going on in the ending. It tears some people apart. So there's countless theories about the ending of The Thing. It's just MacReady and Childs sitting down having a drink at the burned Outpost 31. Was one of them a thing? Were neither of them a thing? Were both of them a thing? That's the beauty of the ending. And I could really get into the ending here, but why do that when I have so many thoughts on the ending of The Thing? I can make a video of its own. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a video next week all about the ending of The Thing and what I believe the ending of The Thing means. But that's my list, guys. Number 1 is The Thing. It is my favorite horror movie of all time. What is your favorite horror movie of all time? What do you think the top 10 horror movies of all time are? Yell at me in the comments, tell me how wrong I was, and I'll see you guys in the next one.